ain't going down below no more. I've crossed that bridge the last time.
Hey, beautiful. My name's Owen Goslin, and I'm the director here at the Cheboygan Area Arts Council, which manages the historic Cheboygan Opera House. And I'm here with two of the cast member and director of a show called North Country Opera, which we're going to host here on October 10th, coming up on a Monday. And we thought we'd bring them in to hear a little bit more about this show and what it's all about. So let me introduce these two characters here. We've got David Menefee, who plays the old man in the show. Probably couldn't figure that out from his appearance. And Ron Miller, who's the director of North Country Opera over here. So I'm going to start with a very basic question. Are we about to hear an opera in the Cheboygan Opera House? Something tells me maybe it's not like a normal opera.
No, a North Country Opera is, you could go down and say it's a folk opera, but it's not an opera in structure. It's a musical. It's a folk musical. And the structure is there's a storyline, a complete storyline, a love story. And in that are multiple songs, all written by Jay Steelstra, that tell the story of the people who live up in the UP, takes place up in Grand Marais.
Yeah, so for our audience, who is Jay Steelstra? He's somebody that people might have heard of, but some people might not have. But what's his role in Michigan and Michigan folk? David?
I met him in about 1962 or 3. My brother played football for him at Ann Arbor High School. Jay was our football coach, and I believe he taught civics, didn't he? And we used to go over to his house and play folk songs. You remember the big folk scare of the 60s? You probably weren't around yet.
1975.
I'm sorry. Anyway, folk music was big, and Jay was even writing songs back then. And we'd go over to his house, and my brother introduced me to him. I was in 10th grade, and I think my brother was a senior. And we just played a lot of music. And then as years went by, he had written so many songs, and he needed a vehicle to display them. And that's when he wrote the opera, the storyline, so that all these songs could come out. And we used to play in a bar in Ann Arbor called the Old Town Bar on Sunday nights. And Jay came down there on a Sunday night, and he told us, he says, you know, I wrote this script, and I want you guys to play in it. And of course, none of us were actors. We're all just playing our guitars and singing songs. And he says, and I don't want actors. I just want people to sing my music. And we did a couple of rehearsals, and the next thing you know, it was Jim Moran, was it, and David Bernstein that collaborated with Jay to put it on the stage, right?
Yeah, that was in the original Performance Network.
Wait a minute. I'm going to give the mic to my director here. He knows more about it than I do.
So, yeah, that was early 80s, 1982. The Performance Network in Ann Arbor had just formed as a theater. And this was the second play they'd ever done. So, yeah, when they came there, yeah, this is the kind of thing we want to do, something local playwright. And people obviously knew Jay. And so, and we're aware of him. He was actually a top runner, athlete at the University of Michigan.
And if I can ask, why do you think this show is took off so much, that it's still 40 years later so popular that there's this demand to see it come back again? What is it about the story or the show that you think has really spoken to people over the last 40 years? David, you want to?
I just think it's the story everybody wants to see come true. It's a beautiful story, and I'm not going to tell you how it goes or how it ends, but yeah, it makes you walk out feeling good. That's the important thing, I think, that I've noticed anyway. People come out of here laughing.
For all the interesting characters at this time, again, they're identifiable people, you know, again, their social life is sort of occurs in and around this bar in Grand Marais called the Buckhorn Bar. And these people engage with each other, but they're friends, but they're all just interesting types of people. And you could even see them as, oh, that's the uncle you don't want to invite to Thanksgiving. That's probably who's likely to cause some kind of brouhaha, and they're always sort of fighting. But I think what comes out of it and what makes it special is the love and the music that comes out and emanates from this. You come out sort of liking everybody.
Well, great. Maybe we can hear a couple of songs from the show. And before we hear David play a couple, maybe, David, could you talk about your character so we all get a sense of who the old man is, other than he's an old man?
I think I should leave it up to my director, but all I could remember is that I was a kind of a grumpy old fart. And I am anyway, so I didn't have to act in the first one. Jay asked me to play that role, I think, in the first one we ever did. You'd be a good old man. Well, I had a nice, beautiful black beard in those days. And I can remember when we went in to the dressing room there for to get our costumes, basically. Mm-hmm. And that gal, I think it was Chris McMullen that was helping or doing all the
Chris is acting in the show.
Yeah, but she's got some theater it's behind her, and she pulled out that can of white spray paint, and she just says, "All right, hold your nose," and sprayed this thing all white. Well, they don't have to do that anymore, do they? So anyway, I kind of grew into it. I think Jay made me an old man a little earlier than I wanted to be an old man, but I've been kind of old and grumpy ever since that time. So.
Great. Let's hear a couple of tunes then. David, you want to give us the name of this first tune you want to play?
Hey, Buddy. This song is called Hey Buddy, Hey Buddy, I believe. Both Hey Buddy. Or maybe it's just Hey Buddy. That's good enough for behind the barn, or in the bar. I got barn, I forget. Oh, once I was a young man, I dreamed a young man's dream. I hunted in the lowland and fished the brushy streams. I courted pretty women and danced the whole night through. Thought spring would last forever, just April, May, and June. I made a bit of money, I had a lot of fun. I played away the nighttime and worked away the sun. I never thought of trouble, though the years flew by. But you add a month to springtime, it's still only July. And then my friends grew older, some even passed away. The fields have turned to golden, my hair has turned to gray. Autumn was upon us, but how were we to know that time would pass so very fast? Oh Lord, where did it go? And now I am an old man, I dream an old man's dream. No longer hunt the lowland or fish the brushy streams. My body is a costume now, well weathered you can see. Still here inside my disguise, hey buddy, it's still me. Hey buddy, it's still me.
Beautiful, David.
That old geezer.
That was just gorgeous. I hear you got another song for us too from the show. Is that right?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about this next one?
Well, put it in context, you mean, somehow?
Yeah.
Well, this young buck comes up to my bar, and he's after all my fishing holes. He's got his fly rod in his hand and his guitar on his back, and he's trying to sweet talk our barmaid. You know, anyway, I just, you know, had to lay into him a little bit and let him know that, well, there's too much hobo in you, boy, and you should stay home, kind of know your place instead of coming up here and ruining mine. And I've never been much of a rambling man. Is the song.
Right.
And it's you want to just do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you got to remember this guy's old, so I've never been much of a rambling man, doing about as well as I can. Never born and raised in Michigan. Never been much of a rambling man. Snow upon the mountaintop, salt in the sea, they say. Some are born to wander, Lord, some are born to stay. No, I've never been much of a rambling man, doing about as well as I can. Born and raised in Michigan, never been much of a rambling man. I walked the stream where the steelhead run, and I stalked Pat with an old shotgun. Had me some trouble and a whole lot of fun. I'll have me some more before I'm done. No, I've never been much of a rambling man, doing about as well as I can. Born and raised in Michigan, never been much of a rambling man. I eat too much, I brag too much, and I've lived a bit too free. Hanging around this old town, it may be the death of me. No, I've never been much of a rambling man, doing about as well as I can. Born and raised in Michigan, never been much of a rambling man. Snow upon the mountaintop, salt in the sea, they say. Some are born to wander, Lord, some are born to stay. Yes, some are born to wander, Lord, some are born to stay.
We have David here as the old man. Can you tell us a little bit, Ron, about some of the other characters, other musicians and cast members?
So other characters are Jenny and Limpy, who he talks about as beer garden women. Basically, they're the kind of, they come in there, that's their entire social life up there. They sit and they have their spot at the bar. They sit there and pretty much spend the day there. There's not a whole lot of work, a whole lot of thing going on. And then young Sari, the gal who sort of manages and runs the bar, she doesn't own the bar. She works for Rusty, who owns it yet. And then there's Old Man, and then there's Odell, another just character, guy who grew up downstate in Ludington and basically worked the boats, the long boats and the lakes. But he doesn't much care for that either, and he sings about his work on the boats, and when he comes back up north, he still likes that, and he stays there, and he carves out his own corner of the bar. So these people have all carved out their places in this bar, and this is kind of where the play takes place. And then in wanders this young guy from downstate, as Grandpa calls him, a flatlander, and he comes up and with the guitar on back, and all of a sudden he's interested in just exploring, finding himself. And of course everybody has their opinion, form an opinion real quick about this kid, but they're real interested in his love life and how he sort of seems to have an eye on young Sari, and then we kind of go from there, and we follow their story, Sari and Michael's story. And Michael's played by Brad Phillips, and Sari's played by Rochelle Clark, both wonderful singers and musicians, just amazingly talented. And I guess that's, yeah, and Christy Lynn Davis, who performs with Dave Boutet typically, and they actually do the Beaver Island Festival. MC Christy actually was a dancer with the Rockettes, and she plays Libby, and Chris McMullen plays Jenny, and she's a wonderful foil for Grandpa. Jay's son, Aaron Steelstra, is coming from Italy. He's an actor, film and screen actor in Italy, lives in Italy. And he's coming, he did the very first tour up north as a 14, 15-year-old, doing props and things like that. Well, now he's going to be taking on the role of Odell, a role that was first made by Charlie Weaver, who's a wonderful local performer. And but he's coming back to do this role.
That's going to be really incredible to see him, the son of Jay Steelstra. And we should have mentioned Jay's from Ludington, so he's kind of a northern Michigan guy that wrote this and then moved to Ann Arbor, as we heard, and wrote this story that reflects that living in both places, I guess you could say. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for being here. And again, we've been hearing about North Country Opera, which is going to be touring around northern Michigan and then ending up in Ann Arbor. But the place you want to see it is here at the historic Cheboygan Opera House, October 10th. It's a Monday at 7:30. Tickets are available, and we'll put that information down below. But again, I'd just like to thank both of you for coming up here and chatting about the show. We're really, really looking forward to it. Thank you.